So, Joe, on Friday, the SEC and the Big Ten came with a joint statement in reference to coming together for what they call the advisory committee. Now, this coming after Florida and Tennessee getting popped with, I guess you'll call it, not really popped with, but it was leaked that the NCAA was investigating Florida and Tennessee for NIL infractions. Joe, I don't have a problem with the two strongest conferences joining together and trying to find a way to get, number one, regulation, okay, and number two, get college athletics and college football on the right path. Here's the problem that I have with it, though. I am not a fan, okay, of the NCAA. I'm not a fan of how they go about things. But I'm also not naive enough to think that if you give the conferences all the power, maybe is the way I should say it here, Joe, if you think it's the Wild West right now, what do you think it's going to happen if the conferences are running things? Because let me just tell you, do you really think Greg Sankey, do you really think Tony Petitti, it took him a year and a day to come down on the Harbaugh stuff. I mean, he had the blatant – Joe, he waited the entire week when all the Michigan stuff came down.
Wait.
He didn't suspend him until he was in the air. He cowered it down. He suspended Harbaugh when he was in the air. And they're on their flight to, Maryland?
He still did hand down a punishment, though. Many were saying that they shouldn't punish him until after the season. And he was willing to put. This is the part where I don't agree with you. And
yeah,
so,
but
first of all,
could he have not done it on a Tuesday? He had to wait till he was in the air to do it?
Look, first of all, yes, this is a pretty clear indicator that we're going to end up, this might lead to them separating from the NCAA to create a larger separate entity.
Football-wise.
Yeah, so it appears to be specifically football directed. There was no mention of the NCAA in this happening. It was just the two of them working together. It was completely out of the nowhere, out of the blue. And these two conferences have never worked together, really. I mean, think of it also this way, too. They also don't even really schedule a lot of opponents amongst the conferences that often. It's not a frequent thing.
I think Alabama goes to Wisconsin this year, don't they?
They do. It's like the first time, it feels like, not the first time, but this upcoming season, there's a lot more of it. But in the past, there hasn't been a ton of it. So for them to combine their attention and resources on this tells me a lot, that they're going to use this as a way of not making it messier than it needs to be, being public about it and communicating, and then coming to the conclusion, oh, this might be a better idea for us to separate. That ultimately is probably going to be what the conclusion is. But what I actually disagree with you on is I think that it actually becomes easier to hold teams accountable when there's less of them and when there's two sides that are managing their own teams. I think where the NCAA constantly gets themselves in trouble is, one, they haven't taken the time to create the rules, which has led to the mess that happened with Tennessee. And two, there's so many teams that they move at a ridiculously sluggish pace. I don't totally agree that Greg Sankey is going to have unbiased favoritism when he's handing down punishments. I don't think that's the case.
I completely disagree because we've seen him do it before. I mean, Joe, I read his statement, okay, and I have it here if we need to pull it up just in case. But, Joe, in the last sentence that the SEC released, SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey said, "We do not have predetermined answers to the myriad questions that are facing us. We do not expect to agree on everything, but enhancing interaction between our conferences will help us focus on efforts for common sense solutions." Here's the problem I have, though. Okay, what's the common sense solution of Nico Iamaleava being on a plane when he's not signed to the NIL group?
The common sense solution is encompassing that and allowing for that to be a part of NIL and recruiting.
Okay, well, hold on one second. Then you have to change the rule in saying that's not a recruiting violation. Let me give you another example. I've been thinking about this all weekend. Joe, we're going to be in a dead period on Monday, right? Coaches can't go out and visit. They can't call players. So wait a minute. You have specific dead periods for coaches. Well, I get it that they need them because sometimes coaches just need breaks. I fully get that. I'm not saying not to. But you mean to tell me, okay, that you have to have dead periods where coaches aren't allowed to talk to players, coaches aren't allowed to be around practices, or they're not allowed to watch training or weightlifting or any of those kinds of things. But my God, yeah, he can be on a plane and Nico Iamaleava can be on his way to Knoxville.
But that's the whole point of all this, is for them to put together a new set of rules.
That's not NIL. What they were doing
that's not what I'm saying, though. The whole point of all of this is for them to create new rules where everything can logically, cohesively work together so that all of these things can line up. I don't understand what's wrong with if eventually there's a collective bargaining agreement and there's salaries with extended periods of time that players have to remain at schools to limit the capability of tampering.
Because there's not one right now. And it's not an equal playing field. You can't say that. I agree with you that we should go in that direction.
But that's the whole point of them doing this, is to go in that direction.
But they don't have it now. What I'm saying is, okay, no, they're not going in that direction. You know why? Because Greg Sankey was on Capitol Hill saying that the universities have no business paying athletes and doesn't want them to make them employees. Greg Sankey can't walk his ass up to Capitol Hill and say that we don't want a collective bargaining agreement and then turn right around and make an advisory committee and say that now he wants one because two of his biggest universities are getting investigated with something.
They're inevitably going to have to concede that, though. They're going to have that is, at the end of the day, the biggest issue right now that is plaguing this is all tied to the payments going to kids, it being undocumented, unregulated, all of that shit. There should be, I think that the way that it could really fix this is if there is a bargaining agreement, and if players are on 2-year contracts, and at the end of those 2 years, they can choose to transfer or if they can choose to stay if they want to. But he is going to have to concede that. That needs to be the purpose of all this. That's the root of all the problems, is that there is free agency in any moment that a player wants to leave. And that doesn't happen in any other major sport at all.
Joe, what is NIL?
Name, image, and likeness.
Is what's going on right now name, image, and likeness?
No, that's why it needs to just be player contracts, and we need to remove the name, image, and likeness part about it.
Again, I can't believe I have to be the one. Let me tell you what I feel like. I do feel like that I'm on an island, okay, and just asking the question, okay, I think we all agree with this. The NCAA sucks. We agree.
Yeah.
Okay, like none of us are disagreeing. The problem that I have with it is, okay, can we also come to the conclusion of, hey, that's not NIL though. You bringing that kid to Knoxville on a private jet is not name, image, and likeness. It's pay for play. Okay, and right now, we do not have a collective bargaining agreement. Joe,
that's true. That's true. Yes,
hypothetical question.
Okay.
Did they go get that kid to try to get him to play for Tennessee? Is it pay for play or not? I mean, let's cut through the bullshit and cut all the bullshit around us. It's pay for play.
It's pay for play, and that's the whole point of the advisory committee, is so that eventually we can just legalize pay for play and then ignore all of this backwards
then why
old
do you
school
have
bullshit.
Greg Sankey on Capitol Hill saying that he doesn't want it?
Just because he believes that doesn't mean that we won't go in that direction.
That's true. And look, one thing that I'll agree on, you and I have been standing on this for a long time. Look, our buddy Josh Pate, who will be on the show with, at some point here, okay, he came up with a solution. If you use $4 million for 80, if you paid 85 scholarship players $50,000, it's like $4 million plus, like $4.25 million. Okay,
yeah, it's not as much as people think.
You're getting $65 million in a TV contract. My point here is, don't try to spin to me, okay, them going to get Nico from California on a private jet isn't pay for play. Don't tell me that Jaden Rashada, okay, isn't pay for play. And let me throw this out here to you too. Everybody's mad that the NCAA not even allegedly. Come on, they leaked it to Pat 40. They leaked this story.
Yes, they did.
The investigations to Pat 40.
They did.
Well, I have a question. Who was leaking the money stuff about Nico and Jaden Rashada to the media?
Probably opposing coaching staffs. If I were to guess.
It makes it no different. Okay? So you mean to tell me that coaches, administrators, commissioners, everybody else can leak shit, but my God, when NCAA does it, it's really bad. No, they don't like the NCAA. The NCAA effed up. They could have ended all of this. They could have, in the beginning of all of this, had things structured and in place to where college athletics could have been on a good and narrow path. They missed that window. But they missed that window 5, 6, 7 years ago when the first O'Bannon case literally won in court, okay? They didn't do anything until it got to the Supreme Court and O'Bannon won the 5th time. My only point in all of this is, Joe, I do think there are two things. Even if there's a collective bargaining agreement, there still has to be a third-party entity for recruiting violations. Because, Joe, let me tell you what's a collective bargaining agreement's not going to stop. You ready? What was happening before NIL was a thing? Players were been getting paid well before this was even happening. You're still going to need, in my opinion, okay, and we can clip this part. Joe, let me ask you the hypothetical question. Say the NCAA is no more. Who will be a non-biased third-party entity that should run college athletics then, or college sports?
Well,
because
okay.
I need somebody.
I think at the end of the day, the NCAA is never going to completely disappear. What is the most likely outcome out of all of this is that the Big Ten and the SEC pull their football teams and then a couple stragglers from other conferences to form a 40-plus team football separate subdivision. All of those other schools' sports programs are going to stay where they are and be a part of the NCAA. The NCAA is going to have more than enough money to operate and run, maybe on a slightly smaller scale. That's going to be completely the same. I just think at the end of the day, what I feel like is going to happen here is that they're going to come together with solutions. They're going to try to present it to the NCAA. The NCAA is going to feel disenfranchised by the fact that they weren't involved in this advisory committee, and they have no right to say, oh, yes, we're going to adhere to this. That is going to probably end up leading to this separation. And if it does end up leading to that separation, all of those other sports can remain a part of the NCAA. But to what you're talking about here, having, like, I think that's the whole point of the advisory committee, is to literally sit and talk through all of these details. I don't disagree with you. Yeah, they probably should have an unbiased investigative wing that handles the new rules that are in place. And the most important rules are going to be the recruiting ones, and making sure that guys stay in school for the time period that they're signed to stay for, whatever ends up coming of that.
It's not just recruiting. It's academics. It's drug policy. It's so many other things.
But the NFL has their own investigative legal
but they also
department.
have 32 teams, okay, and far less player personnel that they have to govern. Okay, like everybody talks. Joe, come on.
There's going to be there's 34 teams amongst the two teams or the two conferences.
Okay,
right now.
so with that alone, okay, literally there's more players and coaches, okay, combined in the Big Ten and the SEC than the entire NFL.
I just think you're making an assumption that they couldn't put together a team that's responsible.
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the NFL has a structure, okay?
Okay.
But college football is something completely different because, again, you got to worry about academics. You have to worry about recruiting. There's so many different levels to this.
Do these schools not already have compliance officers?
Sure, but schools having compliance officers, things get missed all the time. You want me to tell you an example? We just talked about it in our last show. You ready?
What?
Kayshawn Booty. I mean,
I just don't know why you're like assuming that just because this goes into a separate league that they're just going to be like, oh shucks, we're not going to have anybody who's regulating it. You guys can just do whatever the hell you want.
Here's my fear. You ready? I don't have any faith whatsoever, okay, that Greg Sankey or Tony Batiti, when it came to nut cutting time, would really pull a trigger on any of these universities and hit them worth a damn. Okay, because here's the truth. Whether you like it or not, whether NIL is true or not, or the collectives are true or not, whatever all of this comes down to, this starts because, okay, of Nico Iamaleava. This is where this starts because they released it for a reason. They did this for a reason. They had talks. They released it at this time for a reason. Joe, here's the bottom line. They paid to play for the kid. They paid him to go to Knoxville.
Okay,
hey,
how different is it for him? Wait,
Can I land? Go ahead.
Go ahead.
A Knoxville group paid for a kid to go there. I don't care about that. That's not my point. But there has to be guidelines to where things like that don't happen. You know where it doesn't happen? You brought up the NFL. Did you not?
Yes.
No, why is
they're on contracts?
No, there's things called tampering. Remember in the NFL, everything has to be announced. Like when you're interviewing somebody, okay? You have to announce that you're done with an interview or you're interviewing somebody.
Yes. Okay. Well, those things should be added. Those things all should be added. I'm not disagreeing with that. They need to have a little bit more decorum and organization with how they handle things. But that was why I suggested, I think that I don't even know if anyone's even considered doing that. Players should sign 2-year contracts. When you come in for your first 2 years, you should have to stay for the first 2 years, and then you renegotiate at the end of that contract.
But what happens for kids that are juniors and seniors?
At the end of the what do you mean? What happened? You're there. Your first contract is for when you're a freshman and a sophomore, or a redshirt freshman.
The reason I say that very quickly, remember the 2-time transfer rule that just got passed?
Yeah.
Okay. A federal court judge in West Virginia deemed it unconstitutional that you can't tell a college player or a person where they can and cannot transfer.
Because of the antitrust law, though, was where that was derived from, because the NCAA is the only entity that made that rule. But now there's 2 entities that are making those rules. And there's still going to be G5 football. So if the player wants to transfer to one of those teams, they can.
The rule. I mean, there's no.
The new conference is making the rule. The new conference can make the rule.
Between the SEC and the Big Ten, there's still no collective bargaining agreement.
I'm speaking in the future. I'm speaking that like when this thing lands and this comes together, there is going to be a collective bargaining agreement. There's going to be contracts for these players.
But we're not there yet.
I understand we're not there, but I'm trying to project what this leads to. That's what I'm mostly focused on.
Can I tell you something? I don't think we get there.
I disagree. I don't think any of us thought that we were ever going to. We have speculated on this show a million times over, and on any college football show you listen to, they speculate. Are we going to get to two teams or two conferences? Are we going to get to just the SEC and the Big Ten? Is this going to take a decade? And this is the first time, after all the conspiracy theories, that both of the entities that we speculated were going to do this announced that they were working together to fix college football. We're getting this. This is going to happen.
All right, let me throw a hypothetical your way.
Okay.
You know what my favorite topic is that we talk about on this show. What is it?
What?
Realignment.
Okay.
It's a reason that the Big 12, okay, yes, I loathe it. There's a reason that the Big 12 and the ACC were left out of this.
Yeah, they have no incentive. None of the good teams are remaining in the Big 12. There's maybe a couple, and then there's the couple teams in the ACC that would be worth taking or considering leaving. So there's a reason why they're not involved in this.
Okay, so let me double down on that question. Does this show that we're about to have another form of conference realignments here?
I think at the end of the day, if this does go through, they do separate. They do end up putting to an NFC, AFC type of playing field, which is what would make the most sense. They would probably have the ability to pay off and pull Florida State, Miami. Notre Dame would probably come along the way too. I think that would also be the case here. I mean, why would any of the – I think of most of the Big 12 and ACC schools that don't have rich alumni bases or large athletic departments with a lot of funding, I think a lot of them are just going to be content sticking around in their conferences, and we're just going to have a bunch of G5 conferences. The Big 12 would become G5. The ACC would become G5. It's the only logical thing I can think of.
Here's the problem I have. We've let ESPN, Fox, CBS run amok. And it's a shame. Honestly, it's a shame.
I don't think that it's a bad thing that we could potentially have a better, more organized product.
No, I'm not saying that. No, that's not what I'm saying. I agree with you. I think it'd be what I'm saying is that they came in here with a whole bunch of money and did whatever they wanted to.
Yeah.
And because you didn't have a commissioner, I'm going to call it what it is. Because you didn't have a commissioner and nobody that could say, no, you're not going to do that. Okay? College athletics, ESPN, Fox, CBS are doing whatever they want. Joe, you literally have the ACC on the CW. You have games on the CW. Okay, you know why? Because ESPN is lobbying these games out to show who's got the power. You know, I feel like the executives at ESPN and CBS are like, hey, bro, watch this. I'm going to put Syracuse and Duke on the CW. And they're laughing about it. Drives me insane. I don't care who wants to go what conference, who makes what money, who makes, doesn't bother me. Okay. The only problem I have is here, I think that we've allowed TV companies to run the show. And that's a little bit of a shame. Well, I do agree with you on one thing.
Okay.
It's inevitable. I mean, it simply is. I'm not, Joe, I got to be real with you. I'm not going to be shocked on us just having two conferences. I just got done watching what do you call it? The Pro Bowl, NFC, AFC. Here it comes to college athletics. And I kind of feel like it's dumb. I'm old enough to remember when conference pride was a thing. Like this, for example, the Big 12 had a lot of conference pride in basketball. The SEC had a lot of conference pride in football. Okay. The Big 10 had conference pride fencing. I don't know what the Big 10 has. It's a joke. I'm joking.
Hockey.
Okay? Hockey. All right. A long time. ACC, they have a long-standing college baseball tradition. All right. By the way, rest in peace, Mike Martin from Florida State. Yep. All I'm saying here is it feels to me that what we knew growing up is dead. It's over. And yes, it pisses me off. But that's not on the NCAA. What's one thing that we don't talk about, okay, is who's to blame for all of the schools doing what they're doing. It's crazy to me because we talk about NIL, we talk about the portal. Nobody's saying a damn word about Florida State throwing a hissy fit because they're not making more money. Why?
Because I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I mean, I think that
it's the same kind of thing. You have players not making the money that they should be making, okay? But the player looks bad. It's like the Joker line from The Dark Knight. One little mayor's going to die, and everybody loses their minds.
But that's
a good Joker.
Yeah, actually, it was pretty good. That was pretty good. Wait, who's the actor?
Heath Ledger.
Who's the actor? Heath Ledger. I think that's actually one of the things that's really plagued college football over the past 2 decades in particular, and then over the past 5 years with NIL and these conferences realigning. For some reason, there's this notion that, like what you're talking about, this desire to want and aspire for more, for a team to want to be in a more competitive playing field, to make more money from their TV contracts, to be able to produce and have better product on the field, and to be able to win a national championship, to be able to recruit better. And then for these athletes, for them to aspire to be able to make money, for them to be able to get money and to leave, to go to another school, to get on the field and to make money. For some reason, it's villainized. And like you just brought it up with Florida State, it's been villainized. A lot of people have said, outside of Florida State fans and some supporters of their decision-making like myself, it has been villainized. A lot of people, and especially ACC fans, have painted them as selfish. And same thing with the players. Anyone, what would you have called the USC move? A lot of people, or not you, but like a lot of people were calling USC, the initial ones that started all this, as a selfish decision for them to try and play a schedule from all the way in Los Angeles to the middle of the country because they were seeking a better TV deal. And I think it's dumb. I really don't understand why it's villainized. I don't think it's a bad thing that we have to make these changes, that we have to make these moves forward. And whoever was behind that decision-making, we could sit here and make conspiracy theories about it because we're not in those rooms. We don't.
Decision. Who made the decision?
I think it's more than I think it's more than just the TV networks. I think it's a lot more than that.
Who do you think it is? Who's the deep?
I think that there's administrators that are involved in this. I think that the conference commissioners have a lot of say and sway in all this. Because one thing that's not talked about, by the way, is that a lot of these networks have priced themselves out of being able to afford the TV deals. Like, we're getting to a point where they're becoming so expensive, and I know this for a fact from knowing people that work in this industry, that it is literally becoming impossible for ESPN and Disney to afford the NBA rights. And we're about to get to that point with college football because there's so many different products out there. But again, my main point with all this is I just think that to assume that it's selfish and a villainous activity to want more, it's dumb to me.
I don't mind that. You signed a contract.
Yeah, I'm not saying that you're one of those people. I'm just saying in general.
They signed a contract though. I'm not mad at Florida State. I'm also, you should have known the details in your contract before you signed them. You always
when they signed it, that was so long ago. That contract was a long contract.
Making more money than them, even then. Don't sign a 20-year deal.
Well, that was really
okay.
dumb.
It's stupid. Yeah, like, I mean, Joe, you and I, as a show, okay, we read our contracts before we sign them.
How long is the Big Ten one?
10 years.
Like, that makes more sense. Right. But that's the whole point here, is that the 20-year ones, it completely digs yourself into a hole because you're just getting blown. There's going to have been opportunity for multiple re-ups on multiple contracts by the time the ACCs is up.
No doubt. Very quickly before we move on, okay, because we spent a lot of time on
shit.
I know, but it's not. I mean, Joe,
it's so complex.
It's so complex. We don't have a choice. Okay, now Ross Dellinger said that he spoke with both SEC and Big Ten commissioners for the first time to express their doubts on the commitment of college football's playoff future if they don't get the right issues. I don't know what that means. But he said there's a meeting in Dallas on Monday and Tuesday for key talks on the future format and revenue sharing. So there you go. We might finally get to schools having to come off a little bit of that money there. Okay. So, Joe, you want to move into Liam Cohen, UCLA, yep. Chip Kelly, and Ryan Grubb?
Let's do it.
All right. Well, let's talk about our good friends over at HomeField Apparel. Let's reset. We'll come back. Some coaching moves that are being made. We talk about those next.
Ruffino and Joe Show is brought to you by HomeField Apparel, which is the best, without a doubt, premium collegiate apparel brand that is out there. They have over 150 different colleges that you can choose from, whether you're an Illinois fan or a Rutgers fan. Maybe you're an LSU fan like Blake, or maybe you're an Alabama fan. whatever it is, even Idaho. They have so many different designs for so many different football programs that I can guarantee you're going to find some great stuff to help root for your favorite team. I've already gotten my Notre Dame stuff. Blake has his LSU stuff. Make sure you head on over to homefieldapparel.com to check out your team's collection of clothing apparel that they have on the website. And when you do so, when you check out, make sure you use promo code Ruffino Joe to get 15% off your order. That is RUFFINO Ruffino Joe. Head on over to homefieldapparel.com and get your college gear today.
I was going to come up with something witty, but I got brain fog, so I can't do nothing.
Yeah, you're excused.
By the way, did you see this thing? Caleb Williams not wanting to go to the Bears. Is it a foregone conclusion that he's going to go to the Bears?
Yeah, yes. That sourcing is extremely incorrect. It's not.
But his dad was in an interview saying it, right?
I don't know if it was that. Well, okay, there's been a couple. One of them was coming from one of those stupid Twitter aggregators, and then the other one, there's this idiot, Danny Kelly or whatever the hell. No, not Danny Kelly. I forget what his name is. There's this idiot's like first round mock draft on Twitter, and he's a former NFL scout, and he's been pushing that narrative on Caleb Williams and stuff that he's not going to go to the Bears. I don't believe it. He's going to go to the Bears. He's going to be the Bears pick.
So where's Justin Fields go?
Maybe the Falcons. Falcons need a quarterback.
Maybe
it's cheaper to get Justin Fields for a second than it would be to trade up to get Jaden Daniels, which they should do. I would do the Jaden Daniels move.
Yes, go with Justin Fields. I cannot take Jaden Daniels on an opposing NFC South team. Okay. So, Joe, Liam Cohen, Kentucky's offensive coordinator, Liam Cohen is heading back to the NFL. This time he's going to Tampa. Let's start with him on some of these coaching moves. Surprised, not surprised, and what do you think of the move, and who should Kentucky go after here?
Actually a little surprised. It's just a little unexpected because his trajectory has been so back and forth because he was with the Rams and then Kentucky and then back with the Rams and then back with Kentucky and then now he's going back to the Buccaneers. He's a fine offensive coordinator. Him being a little bit pushed out of the Rams organization was kind of how it felt like the first time. I also don't think that their offense was anything sexy this year. Like, did you think that their offense was really Kentucky was really
they're trying to run the Rams / 49ers outside outside zone
play action based.
It just doesn't work in college football.
No. So, I mean, from the NFL perspective, it is what it is. I think that Stoops, though, is in a really interesting position now because I think that there's a little bit more buy-in that he decided to stay, that he decided not to take Texas A&M.
Remember when he was in that interview and he said, I need more money? Well, they certainly are giving it to him.
Yeah, I'm just actually not even really sure what direction they go in because there's really not a lot of great options out there for them because this is so late in the process. But the one that always really comes to mind is Joe Moorhead. That's always the one that like immediately pops in my head because he's such a brilliant offensive mind. And maybe if you could convince Tommy Rees to come back down, that's always a nice fun possibility.
Would be such a vast overhaul of how you do things offensively if you get even a guy like Tommy Rees. I think Tommy Rees is even more innovative than what I think Kentucky wants to be. I'm not really surprised, because look, it seems like Cohen doesn't want to be in college football. It kind of feels like he wants to be a play caller, but he's having to go places that, maybe he doesn't want to be. Now, look, I'll give him this. I think that he can be a good play caller in the NFL. Just looks like that's where he wants to be, but good on him. You know what's one thing that's so awful about all of this is that, Joe, we're in February and these kinds of moves are being made. This so much hurts college athletics, okay, and college teams that, man, where is he going to go? Now, I will say this. You can go get who you want. You could spend the money. It's not as if that people are off the table. Now, there are certainly some guys that are off the table. But who would want to go to Kentucky would be the question. Now you get into a place where, Joe, they got to make a hire, relatively quickly. And I got to be honest, this hurts a guy like Brock Vandegrift. Okay. He's already.
Yeah, that's who I thought of immediately.
Right. He already comes into a system thinking that he'll be running this type of system. It's going to be interesting to see where they go here. I really don't know. I'm with you. I really don't know where they go. Okay. Here, but
BetOnline remains your top spot for all of your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, NHL are all in full swing. BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to BetOnline today and use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for 50% off your first deposit. That is a 50% welcome bonus. BetOnline, where the game starts.